you can see why Even Break exists. So we're a job board that helps disabled people get jobs, and it's because of Will and people like him who have all of that. You can see absolute raw talent and desperation to work and motivation to work, and yet doesn't get a job because the CV shows it's not worked for a few years and the interview process just isn't going to work for him. And Will certainly isn't on his own. There are lots of candidates in that position. So I think that's why we're here, isn't it? Because as organisations, we want to attract talent like Will's talent. And if anybody here wants Will's CV, just talk to us later on, that'd be fine.
There's a copy on my data stick.
You've come prepared. Yeah. So that's kind of, that's setting the scene. That's the position that we're in now, that there is so much talent out there that we're not accessing because our recruitment process doesn't necessarily work. And also our attraction strategy doesn't work. So the good news is that we have Toby, who's going to talk to us about the thing, about attracting disabled candidates in the first place and doing that credibility. So I'm going to be doing your slides.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, so, sorry, I should introduce you better. I'm not doing my job properly. So this is Toby Mildon, who has lots and lots of experience in all sorts of organisations, including the BBC and Deloitte and various others. And because he's learnt so much over the years and all his lived experience, he's now thankfully gone to work on his own, so we can all benefit from his experience and his wisdom. So thanks. Sorry about that. Thanks, Toby.
Sorry. Thanks, Jane. Hi. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So thanks, Jane. So I'm a diversity and inclusion consultant. I work with predominantly HR directors and chief operating officers to really help them hardwire diversity and inclusion into their organisations so that it becomes business as usual for their businesses. Most recently, I've been working with HarperCollins Publishing on becoming a disability confident employer. I've also been working with Sony, looking at bias within decision making and how we can de-bias decision making. One of my biggest projects over the last 12 months has been to write a book, which is imminently about to come out. It's called Inclusive Growth, and it's how we can strategically align diversity and inclusion to enable businesses to grow, and then it just becomes part of the culture of your organisation. Thanks, Jane. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk you through 3 missteps that I often see clients that I work with making in terms of becoming a credible employer for people with disabilities, and then I'll give some solutions. So on the screen is my inclusive growth model that I've created, which is what my book is about, and the book will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. The model is basically broken down into 3 stages, where we look at clarity, first of all, in terms of strategically aligning diversity and inclusion to your business and understanding the impact that it makes for your organisation, all the way to the right-hand side, which is celebration, which is how you can position yourself as an employer of choice and how you can really create an inclusive employer value proposition. I'm not going to go through it in detail because that's not really the purpose of this presentation, but what I will do is focus on 3 key areas. So the first one is culture, and culture is about how do you create an inclusive culture. I think it's really important that businesses prioritise culture when they're thinking about diversity and inclusion over doing sort of tactical initiatives. And some of the organisations that I work with, there's a lot of talk about diversity, but disability is often forgotten, or it's at the bottom of the priority list. And just raise your hand if you've seen the Diverse-ish film, which is part of the Valuable 500 campaign. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic film, but it really stresses the point that a lot of organisations talk a good game when it comes to disability inclusion, but they often deprioritise it. And what that ends up is that all disabled people feel like they don't belong to the organisation, or that they are not a culture fit for the organisation. So I think one of the solutions for businesses is to really focus on a culture of respect and inclusion. And when I was at Deloitte, we actually didn't talk about diversity and inclusion. We referred to our work as respect and inclusion. And what that means is that you need to earn credibility for disabled people through leaders exhibiting inclusive behaviours and leaders who are unafraid to talk about disability. So again, when I was at Deloitte, we created our Deloitte Leader Charter. There were 7 leadership traits that we would expect a leader in the organisation to exhibit. And our definition of a leader was practically anyone in the organisation. You could be a partner responsible for 3,000 people in your part of the business, or you could be a junior accountant who is working with one other person on a client team. And we wove diversity and inclusion into those leadership qualities. We didn't have a separate trait called be an inclusive leader, but it was kind of woven throughout everything. Thanks, Jane. The second area I want to talk to you about is around colleague experience and design. So I work with organisations who often try to create initiatives that try to fix individuals rather than addressing business systems or cultures that hold people back. So, for example, they will create a mentoring program to get women into senior leadership positions. They'll then duplicate the same program for people from an ethnic and minority background. And it's all about giving people confidence or the skills. But actually what they're not addressing is some of the barriers that hold people back. I was hugely influenced actually in this part of the model by looking at the social model of disability, which is about looking at some of the barriers that hold disabled people back, effectively removing the speed humps or the roadblocks that prevent disabled people from entering an organisation or thriving with an organisation when they're in it. It was great to hear Will speak actually, because when I was at the BBC, I worked with our recruitment team. We actually re-engineered the recruitment process to get 130% increase in people from an ethnic minority background getting into interviews. And we had some disabled candidates in that project as well. But essentially what we did is we reversed the recruitment process. Anyone interested in becoming a software developer for iPlayer, we asked them to create an anonymous challenge online to actually demonstrate that they had the ability to create a piece of code that we could put on iPlayer. And then when the hiring manager reviewed that code, and the hiring manager was a software engineer themselves, when they reviewed the code and they were satisfied that it was a good piece of work, we then released the CV to the manager and got the candidate into the job interview. Because we did have disabled applicants in the process who said to us, actually, by doing it this way, they could prove that they were able to do the job, because we'd removed some of the hurdles. So we had one guy who had severe speech impediment, and it would get worse with stress and anxiety. And he would fall at the first hurdle, because the first part of the process was to have a screening call with our recruiters, and he just wasn't able to have that phone call. But from the comfort of his bedroom, he was actually able to demonstrate that he had the ability to code for us. So the solution is to take a much more of a human-centered design approach. And you can do that by conducting listening groups. Get people together in your organisations to really understand the speed humps or the roadblocks that is preventing them from completing a particular journey. That journey could be the recruitment process. If you broke the recruitment process down into 4 or 5 different stages, understanding at each stage what is holding them back and what is preventing them from completing that journey. Thank you, Jane. And then the final area is around celebration. The reason why I put celebration at the end, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, because so many organisations, they put in for awards and they win awards without doing any of the groundwork. But then the lived experience or the reality for employees the following day is that the organisation is still not a particularly inclusive place to work. So whilst awards look really good on your website, they might not actually match the employee experience. So one of the solutions really is to empower employees in your organisations to tell their personal stories. You can do that online through your website or through social media. And you can earn credibility by authentically featuring your people. And I know EY have done this as a strategy over the last 12 months. They've really scaled back on the awards that they've submitted for, but they're empowering their employees, and they're giving them the tools to be able to tell stories about what it's like to work at EY in order to attract talent and create that culture of inclusion and belonging that they're really trying to strive for. Thanks, Jane. So you know when you get this right, because the people are saying these things about you. What they're saying is that my manager's amazing and I really feel like I could belong to the organisation or to the team. What they're saying is that it's really easy to work here and I can just get on with my job regardless of having a disability or a health condition, and nothing holds me back. And what they're also saying is that I can really see myself working in your business, and they employ somebody just like me from an outside candidate's perspective. Thanks, Jane. This is where I do a bit of sales plug. If you would like to get a copy of my book, if you go to this short link on screen, it's bit.ly/Mildon book. You can just put your name in a form and I will send you a complimentary copy of my book, which should be coming out in the next week or two on Amazon. Thank you ever so much, and thanks Jane for having me.